Hi, everyone. Welcome to our last week of this course. I want to just take our last time together just to look at Christianity today, and also perhaps take some time to consider what trends are taking place, what could potentially happen in the next few years and coming decades until the Lord returns. Um, some of the challenges and opportunities that we have faced in the past few decades, and we continue to face these challenges today. But these challenges have also created opportunities. One of those challenges is postmodernism, um, which has challenged our beliefs as Christians. Uh, when it especially philosophically challenged modernism itself, it also challenged the authority of Scripture and the idea of there being a meta narrative in the world today of truth espoused by Christianity. And that was a challenge to Christians. And how do we respond to that? How can we respond in an engaging way? And I think really, interestingly enough, the one group of Christians in the world today that have been able to address that in particular, and the reason why they're growing so rapidly is Pentecostal, charismatic, and renewal Christians today, because the one thing that people today can't argue with is a person's own story and their own experience. And if I've experienced a miracle in my life, it's something that really postmodernism can't really challenge. Um, another issue that has helped rethink the way we do Christianity is post-colonialism. So we certainly live in a post-colonial world today, politically speaking. That's changed the way we do missions. We emphasize indigenous missions networks now and indigenous missions efforts. Whereas in the past, certainly a century ago and 2 centuries ago, most missions advanced around colonialism. That isn't the case anymore. Um, we live in a world also that is post-denominational. We're not nearly as concerned about brands or denominations. That's why so many churches have renamed themselves, even if they're still affiliated with denominations. They don't generally identify with denominations. That's a reflection of the way Christianity and Christians today view themselves. They view themselves relationally rather than organizationally. And then finally, post Christendom. We live in a world today where, generally speaking, with a few exceptions, Christianity is not the authority of the land. It doesn't, politically speaking, and even morally speaking, often doesn't influence society's decisions, which is a challenge, but it presents some opportunities too. It gives us more freedom, certainly, to express our Christian faith, but it also presents challenges because people challenge our Christian beliefs and actions. Um, but let's talk briefly about post-Christian Europe. Some would suggest it was an inevitable consequence of modernism. That is, philosophically, we shifted from a modern to a postmodern society after World War II. That we began to rethink the way we view the world around us. Some sociologists began to speculate that as Christianity declined in Europe, that it would be an inevitable global phenomenon. Um, there was a movement started in the 1960s as a result called the God is Dead ideology or theology. And certainly Marxism and secularism advanced at that time as well. But then things began to shift in the 1980s. And as it turns out, and things began to shift, communism began to decline, certainly in the 90s, very rapidly. And but as it turns out, Europe was really the exception, not the norm for global Christianity. Instead, what Christianity saw was not a global decline, but a global shift in its growth. And we'll talk about that more a little bit in a minute. But in the midst of this age, there's been a variety of different issues and opportunities, and all of these present both pros and cons as far as how we approach these issues regarding our Christian faith and values and evangelism. So one of those is urbanization, which is a global phenomenon. More and more people go to the cities, and more population in the world is in the larger cities in the world, because that's generally where more jobs are. Um, but I think even urbanization has begun to slowly shift, or maybe even quickly shift, because more and more people could work anywhere in the world as we go to more of an online and technical global society. Globalization is another shift that certainly has taken place with global brands, global icons that shift the way we think and perceive the world around us. Um, Global communication through radio, television, internet, and social networking has helped reshape our society and even the way we do church. There's almost no church out there now without a website, without a Facebook page, and even a Twitter feed. But we also live in a world um, where religious pluralism exists, and there's been certainly some growth in religious cults in the U.S. and other parts of the world. We also live in a world where Islam has become the largest competing religion in the world, certainly to Christianity. And one last thing we'll talk about a little bit more in detail here in a minute is the issue of gender issues regarding male and female relationships, regarding other sexual issues, and even regarding transgender issues, which has become a popular topic in society today. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. A couple of the other trends that we see occurring today, we certainly we see a lot of rethinking about the way we do church. This photo was taken probably 4 decades ago, when during the height of the Jesus People movement. You see down by the shore of this area in Southern California and Costa Mesa, you see somebody named Chuck Smith, who was an enormously popular pastor, and was really the pastor of the largest church in the United States for probably 2 or 3 decades, Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. He was the founding pastor of the Calvary Chapel churches. But it started really when he began to reach out to hippies, and which is something that a lot of churches at the time weren't willing to do. But it really transformed the way we do church. We no longer are concerned as much about the way we dress in church or the way we look, as much as we're concerned more about the heart, which really is appropriate. Um, but really, I think that issue with reaching out to the Jesus People was really a seminal moment about regarding the way we do church. Um, there was also the advent of new church networks that has really begun over the last few decades. Indigenous networks, church networks that seem to cross a lot of denominational barriers. I think this actually is a picture of a Hillsong Church worship gathering. That group came out of Australia, but it's really a network that's established through worship, and it really has crossed a lot of denominational barriers, and been an exciting worship movement. We've also seen the advent of mega churches. This is Joel Osteen's church in Texas, the largest church in North America. And another church is uh, Yoido Full Gospel Fellowship in South Korea, the largest church in the world. But we're running out of time. So we're going to make this into two parts.